Hey there, hockey people. It is your buddy Choppadong. Of course, the one, the only content and contributor at DFSArmy.com that always tells you to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the notification bell, head down into the comments section, click the link, become a VIP today using coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and trigger that 20% off discount. We're going to talk hockey. Yes, a lot of you are probably thrilled to death basketball starts up again tomorrow, and I just want to ask you why. Aren't you having fun? Learning a new sport? Growing, sharing, making new friends? Aren't you having fun? I know I am. It's been a great week for us in the NHL room. We thank all of you NBA guys for stopping by. We're going to miss you when you're gone. If you want to go back to the tilting hell that is 15 minutes pre-lock, go for it. You got a sample of it last night in hockey, first night I've seen in a couple of years that just had all those late scratches, and it was absolutely hilarious to watch all the NBA people going, oh, it feels like home, feels like home, when the NHL people were panicking, saying, I've never seen this before, what the hell? But tonight should be a calmer night. We've only got 4 games. We'll go through it really, really quickly here and pick some value plays for you today and probably ship you on out of here. My VIPs will get a video of lineup construction today. We'll dig into the value thing that I could not get done yesterday. I apologize for that. I got a lot of stuff moved around on my personal schedule that popped up at a moment's notice. Today we're going to try and do a little bit better. So let's dive in. Thank you always for contributing to March sweeps. You can see we're building the retweets. We're building the audience every single day. And I wanted you to know that we've got 3 articles for you today. Flinny's forecheck, puck drop, and then my game break. I'm going to click into the game break really quickly just to focus on one chart. I mean, all the games are broken down as far as what to expect, the players that you might be playing. And that's all, hockey's hockey. It's a little bit volatile, a little bit random. But what I wanted to show you was the NHL matchup rankings chart here that I'm going to try to create on a much more consistent basis because I created something last night in my sleep. God, it is so ridiculously simple, and I cannot believe I didn't come up with this before. I do a lot of things with metrics, and I'm not some super Einstein genius that creates these fancy equations and fancy metrics, and I created WOBA for MLB and ISO and what. No. That's not me, but I can simplify things. I took shots on goal and block shots and combined them together for one metric that adds them both together because some guys block more than they shoot and some guys shoot more than they block. And it helps us determine how high a guy's floor might be, even if he's not scoring a lot of goals and assists, because the more active he is, the more opportunity he has. And of course, the cheaper guys on the penalty kills that block all the shots can sometimes provide you a lot of sneaky value that the rest of the industry doesn't see. Created a stat called OB-ISO in MLB, where OBP and ISO are added together to create a sliding scale of those that get on base a lot and those that hit for power a lot. If you hit for a lot of power, you don't necessarily need to get on base a ton to help me in my baseball lineups. But if you get on base a lot, you don't necessarily need to hit for a lot of power either. But if you don't get on base a lot, you'd better hit for a lot of power, or you're of no use to me. So names like Joey Votto shoot to the top of that list, and those are no Mike Trout. Those are no brainers, but it can help you find cheap guys that are high on the ISO or high on the OBP and can help you largely the same in terms of fantasy production over the course of a season. So these are what these metrics do. And what I did here with goals for over the last 10 and goals against for the last 10 is I created a matchup score where I added up the goals for Chicago and the goals against for Detroit and created a score of 7.5, just adding those two together, and 6.1 going the other direction for Detroit going against Chicago. You can see in the reds and the greens. Green is good, red is bad. Why is green good on goals against? Because it helps our opposing offense. That's what we're looking for. Is this a target defense? Yes, they're allowing a lot of goals. Is this a defense we should stay away from? Yes, they're not allowing a lot of goals. So when you start adding these together, you start seeing a more or less sliding scale. If this number is really, really high, it's really, really good because they're really, really hot. And if this number is really, really high, this number can be a little bit lower, and you've still got a good matchup. Because even though they're not running great right now, the other team's just giving goals up like wildfire. That's what we're trying to target. And so when I compare these teams on the slate, I can't wait to see us on a 10 or 12 game slate like we're getting tomorrow, because I think we're going to see some surprises. And I think sometimes this flies in the face of Vegas and the Vegas odds and the money lines. Maybe not quite today, although I think Boston was like a 5.5, which is kind of bullshit, being that Boston's up 3.5 goals per game team over the last 10 games. And Vegas is giving up 3.5 goals per game themselves. That's just under a 7. It's a 6.9, which on today's slate, second best. So if Boston's maybe the second best offense on the slate, why are they running at below a 3.0 on an ITT, an implied team total, because of the Vegas money line being close to 50-50 and the game total being a 5.5, because Vegas just doesn't see it. Vegas is trying to get equal action on both sides of the ledger. They don't give a crap, what you think. If you think it's the over or you think it's the under, they're just trying to get a million on this side and a million on this side so they can keep the juice and move on. They're generally a good indicator of what we can expect, but there are also discrepancies. And for people that don't know to look for those discrepancies, they can make wrong choices. I'm hoping that leads to lower Boston ownership tonight. I don't think it will, but I'm hoping it leads to lower Boston ownership. Winnipeg's the third best team on the slate, according to this metric, and Detroit's the fourth. When you've got these obvious juggernauts like Chicago right now, very, very popular, Boston, very, very popular, Winnipeg, very, very popular offense, and then you've got a little guy under the radar like Detroit, who's right up there with them, above the rest in a little bit better matchup. And you look at their goals for lately at 2.6 and go, I don't get it. But you see this 3.5 and go, ooh, Chicago has been giving up goals. That tells you one of two things. It tells you this game could shoot out. It tells you Detroit's in a sneaky little spot. Now, that's more of a GPP type play because your cash goes on the sure thing, which is going to be Chicago and Boston, most likely, maybe some Winnipeg, whatever. But Winnipeg's being boosted really and truly by Colorado giving up goals. If Colorado's stopping their defense from being so leaky, then that's going to suppress Winnipeg, and this number is going to miss. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. And I'm telling you, Detroit's in a little bit of a sneaky spot tonight. They may or may not go off, but they're in a sneaky spot on paper, and you can see why. Head and shoulders above, Colorado, New York, Calgary, whatever. Calgary's a shocker. Most people will love Calgary, being that they're a 3.5 goal against. But look, they're going up against the New York Islanders. And I mentioned in my article down here that the New York Islanders haven't given 4 goals in a game since November 15th. What the hell are we targeting the Islanders for? I'm not. Anybody else wanting to run out and now Calgary could score 6 tonight. They've got the talent to do it. But New York has given us no reason to think that that's even possible right now. They've only given up 3 goals or more, I think 8 times since November 15th. It's not a common occurrence to get more than 2 goals against New York. They may lose games, but you're not scoring a ton on them, and that's bad for DFS. So with the high prices on the Calgary guys, bad for DFS. I'm going to let the public make the mistake. I'm going to gamble on that anyway and let the public make the mistake. Okay, so that's roughly the offenses that I would be targeting. Chicago, Boston, maybe some Winnipeg for cash type games. Detroit for GPPs, of course, smatterings of these other chalky teams in GPPs, but maybe some Detroit. You might even bank on a Colorado bounce back just because Winnipeg can give up goals. Those would be smarter contrarian type plays, lesser owned, lesser chalk plays. I don't think New York is a good idea offensively. I don't think Vegas is a good idea tonight offensively. I don't think Calgary is a good idea tonight offensively. So now that you know where I'm going to go, let's dig into the research station. I don't even need to show you this page. Somebody was asking the other day, how do you change it and make it fit? You click the 3 dots up here in your Chrome browser and zoom out. I think it needs to be down to about 67%, and then you just barely kick that over, and you've got a margin here and a margin there. But that's how you do it. So same things will be confirmed in a lot of these rankings. What I would be looking for in here is what stacks do I like. If I'm targeting Chicago, I'm going to tell you on the road I like the second line because the second line down here has been producing over 10 games, producing over 5 games, and they're cheaper. But I'm going to try and correlate, so I'll quickly run down correlation for you one more time. Anyone on the line 1 and the power play 1 all correlates with each other at even strength. When they're all out there at even strength, these guys can all pass to each other and get the assist and the goal, which leads to efficient scoring for fantasy. They correlate on the power play 1 because they're both on the power play. Caligula, I call him Caligula, it's wrong, but he's the one that doesn't correlate on the power play because he's not out there. That's not a bad thing because he's dirt cheap. But somebody like here, you've got a top defensive pairing in Duncan Keith, but he's on the second power play unit. Gustafson's on the top. So Duncan Keith does not correlate with Jonathan Toews on the power play. He does at full strength, even strength ice time, but he does not on the power play. Gustafson's out there with them all the time. See how that works out? So when I come down here and I see on the second line, I see that Dylan Strome and DeBrincat are correlated on even strength. They're also correlated on the power play. But if they're on the power play, they also correlate with Toews and Kane. These guys have access to everybody. That's not on even strength, and coincidentally, these guys have access to these guys too because they all overlap on the power play. So if I just focused on Chicago's power play unit, Toews, Kane, Gustafson, Strome, DeBrincat, I'll just mix and match. In cash games, I'll probably take a Toews Strome or a Toews DeBrincat or a Kane DeBrincat or something like that. But on the power play, or on GPP when I'm trying to really, really tighten up my correlations, I'm going Toews and Kane. Toews, Kane, Gustafson. Toews, Kane, maybe DeBrincat or something like that because I'm not wanting to cross these lines too much in even strength time. I want them always on the ice together, always scoring and passing to each other together. Okay? But in cash games or hybrid type lineups that are a little bit safer, a little bit less upside, don't need it to win a 10-person league, don't need it to win a 20-person league. You know what I mean? You can spread out a little bit and take a little bit safer scoring approach. When I come over here to Detroit, I would be focused on line 1 at home. Just so happens Dylan Larkin's up there. Dylan Larkin in his last 4 games, last 5 games, a goal, 2 assists, 17 shots. Pretty strong. Look at Mantha down here, 21 shots, 2 goals and 2 assists. Technically, more fantasy points over those last 5 games than even Dylan Larkin. So and both on the 1-1 and the 1-1, you'd probably correlate them. If you wanted to stack them in a tournament and run that GPP type of game stack with Chicago, you'd just load this top line up. Take these second line guys, these first line guys, you could probably make them all fit, salary wise, and you're in a great spot. Mike Green, maybe, maybe not. Cronwall, maybe, maybe not. He's on that top power play line. 2 assists on 9 shots, 5 blocks. That's 14. Mike Green's your better defender. He's got a higher floor with these 26 shots and blocks together. He's going to get you more points without producing. And if they're both at 0 goals and 2 assists, I opt for Mike Green. I know it's on the power play too. It's fine. He's on the defensive pairing, the top defensive pairing. He's out there with these guys at even strength all the time. Scroll down a little bit to Winnipeg and Colorado. I'm not on Colorado much. Why not? Because they're not producing. They're expensive and they're not producing. They've broken this line up too, which is just ridiculous. Bratanen on the 3, Landeskog on the 2, McKinnon on the 1. Until those, now they're going to all correlate. And look, McKinnon on the power play too. This is just jacked up. No wonder they're so screwed up. Until they get their brain right and reunite that top line and let them just do all the scoring, this is just a mess. I have a lot of confidence that Colorado isn't going to do anything tonight now. I don't know. Varlamov is a little bit high. His expected goals a little bit high. It's not exactly something that's going to produce a crap load of goals, but it's not going to produce much offense. I don't like Hellebuck typically because he's a very, very up and down guy, but man, I don't really see Colorado as being a big threat right now. Wow. They'll probably come out of nowhere and score 6 goals tonight, but just looking at it, this would be an interesting GPP goalie when you don't really care where you finish if you're not at the very, very top. That'd be interesting. Scheifele, Connor, Wheeler, this is your top line. Of course, on the road, you might focus on the second line, but this line does a lot of the damage. They're okay shooting. They're not getting a lot of results, but neither is the second line right now. That's why this offense isn't quite as strong, but they are in a good matchup spot tonight, and I would be focused here on the cheaper second line. And really and truly for the sleeper special for Winnipeg, Patrick Laine has got to come out of this funk before long. Way too talented to be doing this poorly. And you want to be there when the tide turns because he's as cheap now as he's going to be. I mean, unless he keeps us up. He's as cheap now as he's going to be. Scrolling down a little bit to Lowry and Perrant, Tanev. Tanev's a value play. And right now he's running okay, 2 goals, 1 assist, whatever, for cheap. That's not bad. I just wouldn't be looking over here for anything. New York Islanders, same thing. Train wreck. I'm not into them. If I looked for anywhere, just looking down for anyone who's hot, Josh Bailey, I guess. They're on the road, so for the 2, that's not terrible. If he's cheap, 2 goals, 4 assists, but only on 7 shots, that's not too predictive. That's more lucky than it is predictive. But it's factoring in, of course. Might look at that second power play unit. It seems to be producing. There's 3 goals and an assist for Ryan Pulak. That's a good defensive punt most days. So maybe I'd take a one-off here or there. I don't see anything I would stack, but I would try to find some kind of a value one-off in that scenario. Those would probably be 2 of the names that would pop out at me. Looking over here at Calgary, again, I said that's not who I'd be on tonight. You can't argue they've been producing fairly well, but they're just running into a buzzsaw. Top defense in the league outside of St. Louis right now. Just not smart for DFS. It's kind of light your money on fire contrarian, where at least with contrarian, if you took a Colorado, they've got the talent to do it. If they reunited that top line, you could make some sense of it. I don't think you can make sense of it with Calgary going up against such an elite defense. Last game, Boston and Vegas. We saw Vegas was pretty much trash. But if you look, because defensively Boston's just stellar, there may be a one-off or 2 in here. It would have to be really, really cheap for me to want to take the gamble because I feel like they're all overpriced for this matchup. But I'm looking over here. Boston 1 typically does a ton of the scoring. Heinen is still a value play. They've been producing fairly well lately, but this line 2 out on the road trip has been really good, which actually feeds the theory of line 2 on the road gets the softer defensive matchup in the top scoring unit. In hockey, the top scoring matchup focuses on scoring. Therefore, they get caught with their pants down quite a bit on turnovers, long rebounds, things like that that send odd man rushes the other direction, and they generally pay the price for it because they're so hemmed in their own end, your end, trying to score on you that you can catch them on the counter attack. That's a lot of why that happens. The second line, maybe not as talented, has to play a little more of a 2-way game. But by default, when the home shift advantage happens and the home team gets to react to the line that the away team puts on the ice, then a lot of times they'll see these guys as lesser talent and say, I want to match up against them. And then these guys actually get the better offensive matchup by default because these guys are going up against the tougher defense. They're going to take these guys, say these play better defense, let's shut their top line down. When honestly, you might as well just shoot out between the 2 and then play a little bit what you can get on the other, in my opinion. But that's why these guys have been doing so well on the road. They've been matching up against top lines that are a little bit leakier defensively. So you're seeing your Krejcis and your DeBrusks and whatnot, and Kuhlman's not in the Fanduel player pool. He's in the Draftkings only player pool. But look at DeBrusk, 4 goals and 5 assists on the last 5 games. 3 of these games have been on the road, and he's been very, very good. Nice value play. Being that Vegas is not playing stellar defense right now, and Boston is scoring second hottest team in the league, probably maybe the 3rd ranked defense or offense in the league right now. So for me, I'd be focused on this line and then some Chicago stuff in my safer cash type plays. That's just what I would do. I might overlap a little bit with, some Krug or something. I'm not going to dip into these 3rd and 4th lines very often because to me, they just don't make a ton of sense. Okay? That's just how I see the slate. It's pretty simple. There's some of your value plays that are going to be cheap and whatnot. You're more than welcome to dive into the domination station and play around with it. It's a tough tool with a lot of moving pieces, has a growth curve to it. We're trying to figure that out, but largely us hockey guys hand build our lineups. We play, 3, 4, 5 lineups a night. We're not typically hand building 20 and 30 and 40 lineups. And our particular lineup optimizer right now requires setting up a lot of rules, requires putting a lot of time in and getting things just right. And so if you're going to try and just throw 50 lineups out there blindly at the quarters tonight, I don't recommend it. I don't think that's a smart use of your money. I would rather see you start learning the principles of building 3 to 5 lineups by hand and then getting kind of the hang of things, maybe expanding that to 10 to 20 or whatever, and then start playing with 10 to 20 lineups in the domination station and kind of learning the growth curve on 10 or 20 lineups and then gradually getting to 30 to 40 to 50 to 100 to 150 lineups. You can get there, but you're going to need to do a lot of that work in yourself. Some of us can guide you, but none of us are an expert yet because we don't typically play hockey that way. And I apologize for a little bit of shortfall in the coverage there, but we're working on it and we'll get there. But as of right now, that's going to be the safest plan of attack for you. Always consider becoming a VIP inside DFSArmy.com. Click that link. Use that coupon code CHOP, follow the articles, follow us out on Twitter, interact with us here in the YouTube chat rooms, whatever, especially our coaching forums. We'd love to help you become a better player. And I guess that's it for today. We'll be back for a bigger slate tomorrow. And my VIPs will get the lineup building video here in just a little bit. So if you want access to that, it'll be there later today. Probably not for the next hour or two, but it'll be there later today before lock, hopefully, and hopefully guide some people into building more valuable lineups with a little bit more of a value approach so that they don't get hemlocked and packed in at the very, very end of needing a $2,800 DraftKings punt or something like that. So let's work on that next. For the VIPs, for those of you that aren't VIPs, love for you to become one. You can get in here in, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour or so. It's pretty quick. So hopefully I get to see you on the inside today as well. Take care, guys. Talk to you tomorrow.